Welcome to Copilot Connection.
We're here to share with you all the news, insights, and capabilities of the Microsoft Copilot ecosystem across the entire Microsoft stack. I'm Zoe Wilson. I'm an MVP and regional director and a senior director at Avanade, sitting in our modern work business for Europe.
And I'm Kevin McDonnell. I'm also an MVP. I'm also at Avanade. I'm a solutions architect over in there, looking in the data apps and workflow for modern workplace. But this isn't an Avanade podcast. This is very much by the community for the community. And we'll be releasing episodes on on YouTube's as podcasts, and we're going to be bringing those experts to bring the insights across the different co-pilots that Microsoft are releasing from different people in the community and from Microsoft as well. And we want to talk about the impact they can make to you and to your organization, what you need to do to prepare for them, or even to start implementing them now, and even how you can extend them as well.
So, one of the things I've seen over the last few months is that in the world of Copilot, a week is a really long time and lots can happen. And it's only been a week since we recorded the first episode, hasn't it, Kevin? But we've seen
It has.
even more new announcements. There was a OneDrive event on Tuesday this week, hosted by Jeff Teeper. And this week, there's also the Power Platform conference in Vegas, where we've seen more announcements coming out as well.
That's absolutely right. And you've completely reminded me that I need to bring the stuff up. So let's add that up and talk about some of that event. Going to make it a bit larger. For those of you listening on podcast, don't worry, you're not going to miss out. We'll put all the links to these articles that have come through. But it was on the 3rd of October, and Jeff talked about all these great things. You can see him with his lovely wavy hands. I did notice actually, sorry, from this video, I couldn't see if he had any exciting shoes on this time. Usually he has some kind of on-brand Converse, but these look like just a standard lovely pair of trainers. So we'll have to get some insights into that. Go away, Ben.
Maybe we'll see him with some Copilot Converse.
That would be nice. Yeah, we're going to have to ask about that one. Because he did talk a lot about, there were a lot of great announcements about OneDrive. It's going to be a lot faster, the ability to have offline within the web. But really for us on this podcast, it was the Copilot announcements that jumped out at us. So we're going to have Copilot in OneDrive. So this we're not going to dig into it too much. Do go and watch the video, have a look at the links that will be in the show notes in there. It's going to bring that world of Microsoft 365 files in OneDrive and SharePoint into your Microsoft 365 chat, which is I was about to say the landing point. I'll probably get in trouble for you for saying that, Zoe. It's one of the landing points for Copilot, isn't it? But it really asks you to ask those questions about your files, about your contents in there. And I loved some of the things that you mentioned there about being able to bring into folders. So say you're working on, in this case, they're talking about Project Munson. You can bring those related files for Project Munson into that one place and share other people working on that. So really powerful way of automating and making things easy, and also not copying things between folders, which is obviously the way that far too many people still do things as well.
So one of the others that you've got on the screen at the bottom here as well, which I think will be really powerful, is being able to use Copilot to generate summaries of the document
right.
to include with the share links when you send them to colleagues, so that they've actually got more context. I think that's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, really useful, some of the different contents on there. You know what we should have done, Zoe? We should have asked Copilot to summarize this document to pick it up for us and shared that, but it's too late now, sadly. And as you mentioned, the other big news was the Microsoft Power Platform conference. For those of you who've been on social media, have probably seen quite a few posts. And if you're like Zoe and I, have been sat there going, I want to be in Vegas. It looks like they're having far too much fun over there. But I am assured by some of the people I've been speaking to, there has been some work going on as well. And certainly the good folks at Microsoft have been very busy making announcements with that. So I know some more announcements about Copilot and Power Pages. There was Copilot and Power BI. I don't think we're going to go through all of these, but do have a look through the different announcements. I think one, Zoe, you noticed that came through from who was it, Ahmed Buchala, that was noted on there, and we've shared this on the Copilot Connection LinkedIn. Big plug for that. Do go and follow us on there. But he made a announcement from, was it April Dunham and Donna Sarkis session about the number of Copilots that are coming.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what he's saying here, so 155 Copilots across 89 unique Microsoft products. I'm already, one of the first questions I ask colleagues or customers when they start talking to me about Copilot is, which Copilot are you talking about? Because there are so many. And we've probably only got about a fifth, I think, of the number that you've got here. So it's going to be a really interesting time trying to keep track of all of those.
Yeah, it was interesting, and we'll come on to Prague in a minute. But I know one of the sessions I saw there was around AKS, the Azure Kubernetes service, and there's going to be a Copilot for that as well. And there's a lot of these small ones coming through. It's the kind of new CLI, isn't it? It's the trendy thing to have.
Yeah, 100%. So like you said, Kevin, major FOMO from not being in Vegas this week. And talking of FOMO, let's talk about Experts Live Europe, which I think this time 2 weeks ago, you were just getting back from a few days in Prague at a really great event. I was so gutted that I couldn't be there because we were meant to be presenting together. But I'd love to hear from you. What was the week like? What was the event like? What were the highlights?
Well, I think the low lights was when we found out you weren't able to come, so that was not fun at all. But we did manage to rope in Marijn Summers, who came and helped out with the thing. So a big thank you to Marijn. And if you are listening, I hope Zoe sounds better this week. Stop your complaining. just calm down on there. But yes, Marijn jumped in. So I arrived there on the Monday, had a whole half day talking about Viva, one of my other favorite subjects on there. A lot of different people. It's quite an Azure and security heavy conference. There were a lot of people from there, which isn't my usual background. And I actually quite like that for a conference, to be able to kind of stretch and learn from things. Much as I love hearing about Viva, it's often quite a lot of things I know already. And yes, there's always different takes. Nikki Chappell had a lovely session on Viva talking about the compliance side of things, and she's expanded on that talk. So I always enjoy that one. But it was good to hear from some of the other elements, the AKS side. Nick Chang over from Kanos gave a really lovely session on there. But bringing this way back into what we're meant to be talking about in the show, I think it was two big elements for me around Copilot. There was an Ask the Experts session that we had. And we had a few people come over and chat to myself, Carolina Ketikari, Stale Hansen, who we'll hear about in a minute. Who else was there? Marijn and Ragnar Heil, who we'll hear about as well. And we were there, unfortunately, during lunchtime. So I think the attendees had a slightly different focus, and we didn't necessarily have a big banner, which I think next time I'll make sure we bring along, because there weren't so many questions. But I did get the opportunity to demo some of Copilot to the people who came along to the workshop. And I basically said, look, this isn't part of the workshop. I'm not going to use up the time for the workshop. But at the end, if you want to stick around for 15, 20 minutes, and not one person left. So everyone really interested in seeing that about Copilot. That it came up with a lot of the conversations that I was talking to with other people in a lot of different aspects. I mentioned that AKS one, was talking with Ragnar, and we'll show this more in a sec, but talking a lot about governance, and this came into it with Nikki Chappell about compliance and things. So a lot of the areas of conversation are around what's needed to prepare for Copilot, what's getting ready with that as well. Just before what I did was a set of interviews, which we were going to do together, but sadly did those solo. And what we thought we'd do is play those back. They're just 3 or 4 minutes, apart from Stoller, who kept talking and kept talking, which was great chat before I get in trouble from him. And really loved it, but slightly longer with that one. And we're going to run through those. But Just one thing I thought we probably should have mentioned the news. I've noticed a lot of people, Zoe, are going through the preparing for Microsoft 365 Copilot course that's available on Microsoft Learn. I think it's the MK 102 or MS 102 off the top of my head. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. So if you are thinking about how to get prepared for Copilot, it's a really nice introduction, looking at the technical aspects, the kind of change and adoption side within there as well. So and even the security and compliance, how you kind of reassure people that you're not going to be doing a new delve to people there as well.
Yeah, and just to be really clear, that's how to prepare for Microsoft 365 Copilot, isn't it? Because there are so many of them. We need just be really clear. But we'll pop that link in the show notes so that you can access that afterwards if you've not seen it already.
Absolutely. So, shall we go on to the first interview? I have a little apology for these interviews. So, I bought especially for Prague this lovely media mod kit for my GoPro, for those looking at the video on there. But I didn't have this lovely Rode mic then. So I had this directional one because it said it's going to make sure that it only picks up noise from where it's pointing. It lied. Is the answer. So if you're thinking about buying one of those, you do need it, but don't expect to use it in a noisy conference hall. That didn't actually sound that noisy till I played it back. So the first interview we got, I managed to speak to Ragnar. He gave me some lovely lapel mics that we could use. That sounds a lot better. The others do get a little bit noisy, and Zoe's already been complaining at me before we did the recording on that. So we hope it's not too distracting from there. But rest assured, this first one go through, and I have some lovely new. In fact, ready. We'll talk about this at the end. Ready for South Coast Summit. I have my little roving reporter mic ready, so it will all sound a lot better next time as we go out interviewing people. But shall we hand over to Stoller?
Yep, sounds like a plan.
And I'm with the Vivo Explorers together with you.
Absolutely. God, I thought Zoe had the longest intro. I think you've even outdone hers on that one.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're talking about Copilot today. What does Copilot mean to you?
I think Copilot for me means the change of how we're going to work. Having Copilot in the flow of work, I think will be a big deal. For instance, if you get Copilot in Excel and you get tips for how to do what you want to do in Excel, you have a conversation in context of what you want to do and get accomplished, I think that's going to be a big deal for a lot of people. So that's what Copilot is for me. Yeah.
And what do you think will be the biggest transformation that it will bring?
So I talk a lot about Copilot and Copilot Ready, and I think what's the biggest deal is a change in the creative process, because it's cognitively heavy in order to get started with something. Like you have a blank Word document and you need to like write something that you already know. You write something that you need to combine information and so on and so forth. Now if you then get a draft that you can start editing instead, that's a huge change in the creative process. So I do think that we will turn that on the head and say that, hey, let's get started now. You don't have to procrastinate. You don't have to do the same, spend equal amounts of research, because you can like get that information and then you can spend more time making it better. Maybe even, and I do think that in time we can spend more time on communication skills instead.
Yeah.
Because
be nice.
if you're making a PowerPoint and you have it like roughly done, now you can talk about like, okay, how can I improve the message? How can I deliver this in a better way? How can I make sure my ideas get across? I think that's a big deal.
I love that description of that kind of cognitive hit when you have that blank page. I think it's a great example. A number of times I've sat there and just looked and gone, how do I start? Be able to get over that is fantastic. So what should people do to prepare for Copilot?
I think it's of course multiple things. What I focus on is the productivity side of things. What we see is a lot of companies, they are still using modern technology in an old way. So you learned how to communicate internally in the early 2000s in email and Outlook and so on. And now you have like forced that into Teams chat, for instance. What I then say to my customers is that, hey, we need to now move to work out loud in Teams and channels, because that's where the organization is going to get the benefit of Copilot, that you could go into the Copilot chat in Teams and say, hey, what happened last week in that project? The thing is, I don't have access to your chat. So if you have solved everything, run the process in chat, I don't know that, and Copilot doesn't know that because it uses my rights. So that's, I think, is the biggest change that needs to happen now. We talked about it for a long time, but we are seeing customers actually wanting to take that step now. And of course, data quality is important, and making sure that you have the correct type of data, without
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the right people can access that data as well. So it's working out loud, but as loud as you need to, not necessarily everywhere.
You don't need to shout, and you don't need to send to all. That's not what we mean, right?
Yeah. It's understanding that bit in between. Yeah. Absolutely. So, what would you like to see next in Copilot?
What I would like to see next in Copilot, do you know what I want? When Copilot releases, I want it to go into my to-do, Microsoft To-do, because that's my main list of everything that's important to me in my life. And it also has access to my mailbox, it has access to my Teams messages, and say, what's the most important thing I can do right now for me? And then Copilot is going to tell me, hey, you know what? You thought you were going to do this, but actually, I think this is more important for you right now, based on the discussions you've had, based on what you have captured in your to-do, and so on. So that's what I'm looking for. I haven't seen anything around that. I'm guessing it will be possible, but I think that will be a game changer for me. But that depends, of course, if you're using Microsoft To Do, which you should, and capture everything there, not just email, not just Teams messages, but your thoughts, your ideas, your conversations that we have, like, okay, let me note that down so that I have it in my to-do and so on, and asking Copilot, like, what should I do right now? If I have 10 minutes, what should I do?
Yeah, I love that description. I'm trying not to debate too much, because I know Zoe and I want to talk about this afterwards, but as soon as we stop filming, I've got more conversation with you with that, and maybe we'll get you on the show properly for a full recording at some point as
Absolutely.
well. But, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Well, that was quite entertaining, watching it back and remembering what I was thinking, and making sure I came back to at the time. But Zoe, you first. Any thoughts on things he said there?
Yeah, there were some really interesting things that Stella shared with us. And I think a lot of his...
I should say, any thoughts that don't involve swear words. Hopefully we'll remember to go and bleep those out, but apologies anyone offended on that.
Yeah, so I use garbage in, garbage out, which is a little bit more family friendly. But I think it's a really important principle. And for me, I think that focus on working out loud, changing the way that people work and collaborate is super important. And Stella's absolutely spot on there. Yeah, I think that's going to be super important.
Yeah, I think the phrase that I remember at the time that I love was that cognitively heavy, that ability to Copilot just to take that load of lots of different things, or even that getting started with a blank page that kind of makes everyone feel overloaded, reduce that strain so that your kind of brain's there to focus on the good things, the things you're good at, the things you can share. I loved that notion of it as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be super important. I think we'll see some really interesting benefits from removing that blank page fear or paralysis for people, and helping them get to good faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking getting to good faster, I loved his final one. We've asked everyone the same question, so you'll hear the kind of same questions but different takes that others have had. But that one of being able to help people prioritize, I think, will be so important. And whether Copilot can do that from day one, or it's something it will learn from and evolve, I think that what should I do next, to me, is something you well know I love Viva Goals and that view of OKRs, because it gives that focus and helps people understand what should I do next, which takes away from that paralysis as well. If Copilot can help that and say, I've got all this stuff. What is most important based on what I usually do? It would just be fantastic for certain people who maybe are in meetings all the time and have a deluge of messages about all sorts of things. Isn't that
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, well, I think the deluge of messages and meetings is all about Copilot.
yeah, the
The other
irony.
thing the other thing that Stella said, which I thought was super interesting, was around Microsoft To Do.
Mm,
And I've been saying for a while that I think when we start to see this integration from the M365 Copilot that actually integrates with tasks, with To Do, with
yeah,
Planner, that will start to be super powerful. When and this is all theoretical and me talking about what I'd like, but if it can get to a point where it can summarize meetings and identify the actions and then actually create those as tasks with people assigned to them, with the timescales that are talked about in meetings, that will be a complete game changer from a productivity perspective.
I know a lot of people will hate that. It's like, did I really promise to give you that next week? Yes, yes, because it's there in the transcript and we've got the task from it. But yeah, I think the non-joking side about that is people will commit to things that they can realistically do, and it gives a baseline to have that conversation at least. So yeah, really enjoyed that. Um, shall we go on to Mr. Oh, I forgot to say, I've noticed just as that started playing on the video that I hadn't rewound it, so we missed the introduction of Stoller, which included probably him spelling he's pronouncing his name right. So hopefully, yeah, we will replay that at some point and put these videos once we've spoken to them and got the okay up there. And Stoller is the CEO of a company based in Norway, but operating, I think, globally, really, with a whole host of MVPs that work there called Cloudway. So do check them out.
Okay,
Next up,
on to Ragnar.
yeah, I will remember to make sure I've gone back to beginning, so we'll let Ragnar introduce himself. Hello and welcome to the Copilot Connection. I have another guest with me. Ragnar, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Kevin. I'm Marijn Heil. I'm Microsoft MVP, Office Apps and Services, and then also Global Director of Partners and Alliances at Ragnar.
Fantastic, thank you. So we've been asking people a few questions about Copilot. First one, I'd say maybe an easy one, but what does Copilot mean to you?
Sorry, I have to use this word. I don't like to use it, but it's a game changer. I love it so much. I'm currently using it only for 3 different workloads: Visual Studio, Power Apps, and Power Automate, but it's just crazy. So I'm so into the whole Copilot and AI experience. I've got a lot of other subscriptions like ChatGPT, and I use it every day to really get better answers, also to use my Excel sheets, get better visualizations, understand data. So for me it's all about learning, understanding, improving data quality, and getting things done every single day.
Speaking, I thank you, because you're the first person to realise it don't just mean M365 Copilot, it's all of them together that work there. So, and what do you think the biggest transformation will be for people?
I think it's very easy to use, so it's a chatbot, a help coach we know since many years, but the kind of questions you can use in Copilot are so different to the usual questions when chat windows are opening. So I think for people it's going to be very different to ask meta questions. So for example, using Copilot in Word, you can ask how many minutes it would take me to read it loud.
That's a lovely example for that one as well. And what do you think people will need to do to prepare for Copilot as well?
Yeah, so my number one recommendation is go back into your security, reviews, audits, trimming, because you have to take care of that, especially OneDrive.
First interview for
Love to share, and I also share every single day, internally, externally, but all these sharings and permission changes have to be reviewed. Otherwise, many documents, content is going to get on the surface which should not be visible to anybody outside of the special group.
Fantastic. And what do you want to see next with Copilot?
I'm also strong in the admin part, IT Pro part, so backend capabilities. So we have so many different admin centers in M65. I would like to see more Copilot integrations in each single admin center. So not only the end user story, but also for IT Pros, more value.
And that would be fabulous for opening up to people to, don't know where they need to click and need to go. They just ask Copilot.
Yes, because we have so many reports, adoption reports, and all the productivity scores reports. So there are so many reports where I don't see sometimes a value. Sometimes the reports are too official, and then you think, okay, they look nice, but actually when you look, okay, I read an adoption report, but I don't understand what should I change. What is my action, what I need to do as manager to create a change and to optimize things. And here I can definitely ask, hey Mr. Copilot, what should I change to increase my adoption of Viva?
I love that. I love that example. Well, thank you very much for your time, and
my pleasure,
enjoy
Kevin.
the rest of the conference.
Thank you. You too.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Well, first off, apologies for the interruption halfway through where I thought I could sneakily re-upload the video so I knew which one was which, and it decided to start playing straight away. So a sneak peek of Marine Summers came up there. But I want to start off, I realized I didn't say it from the first video, that I intentionally didn't say Microsoft 365 Copilot. And I know at least half of you listening are laughing, going, now you're saying that. But no, it was an intentional thing to see what people brought up. And I love the fact that Ragnar noted that there is more to Copilot than just the M365. And coming from a SharePoint background, we get slightly obsessed with that side of the fence. So it was good of Ragnar to bring that up there. But
Yeah,
Zoe,
I love the fact that he's actually already using it in some of the apps where it's available as well, and that he's finding it really easy to use, and he's actually getting things done with it.
Yeah, no, I thought getting things done's a lovely book and a great thought of it, and the reality of that. I kind of find it interesting that easy to use, because yes, there's an element of it being easy to use, but there's definitely a change in habits that you need to. I've found this with Chat GPT as well, that you can get the very basics quickly, but to get some of the things out, you need to think about how you phrase things, and it's not like you have to go on a 3-day admin course, but there's definitely a little bit of getting used to that way of asking questions and interacting with it, though.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, actually. So Jeff Teeper started a new LinkedIn newsletter this week. I don't know if you've seen that one, but he was actually talking in that about the importance
was that Jared Spatero's
no,
one?
sorry, Jared. Yeah, he was talking about
yes.
the importance of how you craft the perfect prompt for Copilot. And I know he's talking in the context of M365 Copilot, but I think that guidance around how to provide,
isn't it?
yeah, it's the same thing, like making sure you provide the context and be detailed in the instructions that you give it to get that better output. The other thing that Ragnar, the other thing Ragnar mentioned that I really liked as well was that back-end admin Copilot capabilities. Imagine how powerful it would be if you could ask the usage analytics report what you're actually seeing, like what are the actual trends in usage and what does it mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think of those days of delving through logs, trying to find out the answers to things, to be able to answer that in natural query. I know you and I have spoken a bit about between us about the Excel capabilities of creating conditional formatting, because I always find that fiddly. It's the same with going through logs, to be able to go through and say, can you find a pattern? Can you find all the times this is mentioned, without building out filters? We're very, very powerful. And really helpful for those admin people as well, definitely. I think there was something else I was going to say, but I've lost on there. And I think it was interesting when he started talking about backends, that I made note that I was also thinking that he was talking about how you would administer and look after Copilot on the back end. And I don't think that's something we've heard much of in different areas. So I'm going to be careful that I don't say anything at this point. So I'm not going to give away too much, but I think that will be an interesting area and something I'd love to explore on this podcast. That if we can talk about how you look after it, what are the considerations you need to make? What can you do? What can't you do in terms of keeping it running across the different Copilots as well?
Yeah, I mean, at least from a Microsoft 365 Copilot perspective, that will get a little bit easier after the 1st of November.
Yes. Well, in terms of talking about it, yes, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm going to move on quickly before we get ourselves in trouble. Now, this last one, Marijn Summers, I've got 2 recordings of this. We're going to play the main one because, again, a bit like Ragnar's, there was quite a lot of background noise. I think it was even worse during Marijn's recording. So apologies for that. With Marijn's, I did try and reduce the noise with a bit of AI. So I'm going to play that version at the end, and you'll understand why we couldn't use that one particularly well. So it'll be an interesting discussion on where AI helps and where maybe it's got a little bit of time to go. But let's hand this over to Marijn first. We're here live in beautiful Prague at Experts Live. Just to check that is a picture behind us, not the real one, but the real beautiful Prague is just out that way, looking there. And I'm joined by Marijn Summers. Hey, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Ooh, that's always fun. So yes, my name's Marijn, I'm from Belgium. I've been a Microsoft MVP for SharePoint and Microsoft 365 for 5 years now, and I mainly do productivity, coaching, consulting, training to end users, stuff like that.
So, what does Copilot mean to you?
Copilot for me means like the new wave. Like 100 years ago, we had, for example, Henry Ford with the first belt or conveyor belt or whatever you call that, and that was like a big change in like a new industrial revolution. So I think that Copilot is going to be our industrial revolution. So it's going to change the way we interact with all the data and all the systems and all the knowledge now.
And what do you think will be the biggest transformation for people that it will bring?
I think on the one hand, more insight into data, no, I knew you were going to say that. No, well, maybe as well into how we are working and the things that we're doing, because we will not be doing boring, repetitive tasks anymore, like creating meeting notes, for example, or when we need to start drafting a text or whatever, it will just be so much faster. So all these tedious, non-important things will just be better.
And what would you like to see next with Copilot?
What I would love to see next is, instead of me asking a question, that the system would automatically ping me when something was going on. For example, you can set like your own automation that when it's going to rain today at 8 o'clock in the morning, ping me to say, don't forget your umbrella.
Nice.
Stuff like that, but then maybe for the workplace. So, we've seen that somebody added a new customer and this is going on with the customer and they're in the news or whatever, so do something with that.
And not you having to program it up front, having it
exactly.
to know those things.
As a smart, self-thinking system to just go, hey, this might be important.
That's really interesting. Well, thank you very much. So we know we'll have a quick chat about that. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for Marijn on that one, and thank you all of you for bearing with the noise and the background of that one. The poor people. Thankfully, it wasn't the day where they managed to knock over a whole rack of trays full of plates and smash the whole lot, because that really would have been a lot of background noise. But we'll move on to that one. Zoe, any thoughts on those?
Yeah, so I think there were some really interesting things. I really liked what Marijn ended with there around it being more of a proactive system rather than needing a prompt or a question.
Loved that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of this, you kind of have little things like this that happen anyway, don't you? So you get suggested replies and things like that, which is using AI that's been there for quite a while. But it feels like it's taking it to the next level.
They're only really there when you're using Copilot. They don't kind of jump in separately. And like as Marijn noted, don't forget your umbrella kind of thing.
Yeah, but I like the fact he was thinking about it in a workplace context as well. So you've got a new customer. This might be interesting or important for you. So it will be interesting to see whether we see kind of the products maturing in this way and how it continues to evolve, because some of that I think will require that cross-platform. It'd be the cross ecosystem stuff, won't it? So
agree.
if it's telling you about a new customer, presumably that's coming from a CRM or something like that rather than M365. So understanding the things that are important to you and meeting you where you are as well.
The Copilot of Copilots. It's a interesting thought, and I think the other thing about that is the flip side is I don't want to be bombarded left, right, and center by all these annoying notifications. So I'm hoping we'll have that intelligence to know the kind of things I click on. If I kind of dismiss these on a regular basis, it will learn what I want to see, what I don't want to see. So I'm not getting distracted by that too much as well. So, finding the right blend for that. It was also interesting. I didn't put this in the news. Because I forgot about it, and it's not quite Copilot, but I noticed that the Fabric data activator is now out. So that has the ability to kind of notify via Teams and other things when a bit of data changes. So you've got a Power BI report, you have a KPI goes above or below a certain level, you can get those triggers. Now, if you could have Copilot linking in with that as well, that would be very strong to bring those kind of it's almost those curated notifications versus the ones that Copilot suggests as well. So that could be really interesting to bring together.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting few months, isn't it? Well, probably like the next 12 to 18 months, as all of this becomes generally available, as it all starts to mature. It will be a really, really interesting time for how work gets done.
Absolutely, and we're going to see that that classic Gartner hype cycle. Everyone's excited about it now. We get the 1st of November when more people get their hands on it. I'm sure we'll see a little bit of that dip as people have kind of assumed it's going to do a lot of things and find out it can't necessarily or not in the same way that people think. Then they're going to discover what it can do that they like, and we'll see that acceleration again as well. So certainly exciting time. And as Marijn said, is this the new industrial revolution? I've heard that said a few times about Gen AI generally, and it's always hard because I've heard that phrase used a lot of the next industrial revolution a few times, metaverse and things like that, which maybe haven't always jumped quite as far ahead as people think. But this genuinely feels different. It feels like there is reality to this now. It's not just ideas. There's real things coming from it. And we're seeing that with Copilot. So this does feel like the most realistic one as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I often talk about generative AI and Copilot in the context of that industrial revolution. And when you think about what the industrial revolutions did, they transformed entire organizations and industries and economies, and the impact of them had far-reaching social and cultural implications. And it's that, I think, that we'll start to see. And if you look at the impact that the internet browser had when that was added to all of the computers, and the whole online and digital community, and then the smartphone as well, and the fact that we've got entire industries that have been based on the capabilities and technology that you have in smartphones. I do think that this will be that next generational shift in how we work.
So if you're a grumpy old man, if you're Luddite 2.0, you're not going to like the next 2 years. So,
I think are we going to finish with? We're going to have a look at the AI version of Marijn's video.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that we talk about the exciting things we like within this podcast to bring the reality. And I thought I'd heard about Adobe's new podcast platform that had noise reduction. So I thought I'd give it a try.
First interview for Copilot Connection. We're here live, beautiful car, the experts live. We just to check that is a picture behind us, not the real one, but the real beautiful car is just out that way, looking there. And I'm Chloe, it's flying Marijn Summers. Hey, would you want to quickly introduce yourself? Cool. That's always fun. So yes, my name is Marijn. I'm from Belgium. I've been a Microsoft MVP for SharePoint and Microsoft 365 for 5 years now. And I mainly do productivity, coaching, consulting, training end users, stuff like that.
Okay, I think we'll stop there because you don't need to hear a whole thing again. What I found fascinating, I started listening, and I was like, wow, that's completely taken away the background noise. That is absolutely fantastic. And then because I'm diligent sometimes, I actually listened to it and I was like, hang on, what on earth am I saying there? And then Marijn came on and talked about the liberty instead of productivity and things like that. So it's very interesting where it has worked and also where it hasn't been able to do it and it's made it pretty much unusable, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, and it was funny because you sent me the video and I was watching it back, and there were points. I think I must have only been half paying attention because I was thinking this doesn't sound too bad, but there were bits where you were trying to say the word Copilot, and it was Copilot, just completely like blurred and messed up the whole word.
Kev didn't tell me he'd started drinking before that. No, I promise
That's exactly
it was
what
after
I
the
was
interviews.
thinking.
So no, an interesting view of where AI is there, but not always quite there yet. Anyway,
brilliant. Okay, so it was really good to have the interviews from some of our guests at Experts Live, and when we look at what we've got coming up over the next few weeks, this time next week we'll both actually be in Farnborough for South Coast Summit. And we want to speak to you. If you're there, if you've got an opinion on Copilot, regardless of which Copilot it is, if you've been using it, experimenting with it, if you're interested in it and eager to get your hands on it, we want to know what your view is. We also want to know if you've got concerns. Are you worried about the sustainability impacts? Are you worried about the people impacts? So if you're going to be at SCS, let us know and we'll get you booked in for an interview. And you can see Kevin's prepared with all the trusty kit.
I do have 2 of these mics, Zoe, so you'll be able to have your own as well. I'm sure you're excited to hear.
Always.
No, it'll be great, and I think we're already starting to line up with some people to get some experts in, and I think we have quite a few Microsoft people coming down. So we won't give any names quite yet, but hopefully chat to a few of those that we can bring onto the show too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're also looking for experts for future sessions as well, not just at South Coast Summit. We do have an open call for speakers. So if you're interested in joining us on a future episode, fill the form in, let us know which part of the Microsoft stack you work with, what your views are on Copilot, and we'll reach out to you and get that scheduled for a future episode.
Absolutely. And we got that form. It's up on the website, copilotconnection.com. So please, I know you hear these bits and you kind of switch off, but no, please subscribe to us. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, X. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell your colleagues, tell your clients, tell your friends, even your parents. And you joke, my mum was staying with me last week. She has now subscribed. So she's one of our celebrators on there. So please, everyone is interested in this Copilot, get subscribing, get listening, and then we can start sharing it to more and more people. Over to you, Zoe.
So thanks very much for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.